Hi and welcome to this final installment of the Gilera Saturno water pump overhaul. In this video we'll be refitting the pump and fitting a new cam belt. But first of all, I would like to point out that I got the wrong impeller clearance listed in the last video. The clearance between the impeller and the body should be a lot greater to allow the water pump seal to function correctly. That rotating seal needs between 11 and 11.5 millimeters free space to function correctly. And a good guide is that this impeller should be flush with the end of the shaft, assuming that you're either fitting it to an original shaft or a new shaft that's been made to original specifications. So now we need to remove the flywheel on the engine so we can get the new cam belt in there, and then we can fit the pump and the belt and time the engine. Now I've put the bike into top gear and we'll just attempt to shock this off using this hand impact driver. Now to remove the flywheel we have to use a puller. The flywheel has an external thread here. It's 35 millimeter by 1.5 millimeter pitch. And I just picked up this puller off eBay. I've made this little center boss here, which just sits in the center of that on the end of the crank there. So we'll screw this on. Now that we've heated up the center of the flywheel, you really want to be careful heating up a flywheel like this because it actually has magnets on it. And now we'll just use the hand impact driver and see if we can just crack this so it pops off. And there we have it. Before we mount the water pump, we just need to use some O-ring grease on the O-ring that seals the pump into the cylinder head there. I'm just using a Molykote O-ring grease. You certainly don't want to use any substitutes because they may attack the rubber. You really want to use something that's designed for O-rings. Now I've already cleaned up around where the water pump is. You don't need to over tighten those 3 bolts. The next task is to refit the new cam belt. You should probably wash your hands before handling this so that you don't get any grease or oils on it. The other thing you should be careful of when you're fitting a cam belt is that you shouldn't pinch it or twist it in an unnatural manner because you will reduce the service life of the belt. The other thing I've done is I've cleaned out the area behind the cam belt and in around where the flywheel is. We will need to just pass the belt through first, then refit the flywheel before we can actually put the belt onto the the cam wheels there and time the engine. Next, we put the pulley side plate on. It's a convex shape, so just make sure that the bevel is facing out on that. And that's followed by these two concave bevel washers. And the concave side is on the inside on those. And that's followed by the flywheel. Next, we fit the bolt. There's also a bevel washer on this. Make sure the concave surface is on the in, and you also need to oil the thread on this before you torque it up. Before we can fit the belt, we need to make sure that all the timing marks are in their correct positions. The flywheel timing mark should match the one on the crankcase here, and the two cam belt pulleys should be aligned with their timing marks on the front and the back. Now I've taken the tensioner pulley off from this point over here to make it easier to fit the belt, and I've also put a little bit of PVC pipe that I've cut around the tensioner spring to make it a lot easier to fit this once we're done. Well, we've fitted the belt, making sure that the timing marks match up, and I've just fitted the belt tensioner, though I haven't tensioned the belt yet. What I'll do is I'll turn the engine over a few times first, just to let the belt find its natural position on the pulleys before releasing the spring tensioner. Now I'll just check the timing marks again before releasing this tensioner. Now I'll just remove my keeper here over the spring before releasing the bolt and tensioning the belt. And that's all the tension that's really required. Okay, next on our list of things to do is to refit some covers. Now it's time to refill the coolant. Before doing that, just make sure you've replaced any drain plugs or hoses that you may have removed. Now there's also a bleed point on the top of the cylinder head here, which I've taken out, and I will fill the coolant up to a point where it starts coming out that bleed point, replace that bleed screw, and then finish filling the radiator. The bike takes around 1.3 litres of coolant all up, but I'm just using a pre-mixed Motul product here. So let's get into it. Well, that pretty much covers it. We've just got to refit the radiator cap. I'm going to leave the cam belt covers off for the moment so I can keep an eye on the belt and the pump for a few Ks. So all I've got remaining to do is refit the left-hand exhaust system, which on my Isle of Man model has separate pipes, as I said earlier, and then the seat and the tank, and we'll take it for a test ride.